We turn to Psalm 48, Psalm of the sons of Korah. And this psalm is about the city of the great king. We've spoken about this before. Let's begin by reading verses 1, 2 and 3. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation. The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion. On the sides of the north, the city of the great king. God is known in her palaces for a refuge. The psalm begins by describing the greatness of God, how he is worthy to be praised. Many people say otherwise. Maybe you remember from the study of the book of Acts that the people in Ephesus were crying, "Great is Diana." And daily we hear, "Allah is greater." Allahu Akbar. But here there is the reasonable, demonstrable and self-evident testimony. Great is Yahweh. And he is greater than man. Job says in Job 33, verse 12, "Behold, in this thou art not just. I will answer thee, that God is greater than man." Yes, he's greater than man. But not only that, he is greater than everything and anything. Psalm 95, verse 3 declares, "For the Lord is a great God, and a great king above all gods." Small letter gods, of course, the end of the sentence. God is great, the greatest of all. In fact, God is greatness himself. Psalm 145 verse 3 says, "Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable." He is greatness himself. And the praise here is connected to a place, and the place is Jerusalem, the city of God. And as I said, we spoke about this also in Psalm 46. It's quite a big thing, actually. His holy mountain. And when the psalmist wrote this, he was surely thinking of the city of Jerusalem, literally. But prophetically, he was speaking about the new Jerusalem. And that is not a strange idea. If we go back all the way to Abraham, we read in Genesis 14 that he visited Salem, where he met the king of Salem. Salem was the name of Jerusalem, Jerusalem. He was, nonetheless, Abraham, he was still looking for a city whose builder and maker is God, as it says in Hebrews. So that speaks prophetically about the new Jerusalem. And that is enforced by the phrase "on the sides of the north" in verse 2 here of the psalm. That refers to heavenly places, to the place where God is enthroned. We read the same phrase also in Isaiah 14, verse 13, where it speaks actually about Lucifer. And it says about him, "For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north." So here we have this phrase. Jerusalem is called the city of the great king in verse 2. That is actually what makes the city great. There are cities with better natural resources, situated on coasts and or on rivers. There are cities with more natural beauty. There are cities with more architectural greatness, more impressive cities like Dubai, like New York, like London. But even in the ancient days, cities like Athens were certainly more impressive than Jerusalem if it comes to architecture and buildings and statues and whatnot. But there is only one city of the great king. And even Jesus himself refers to this in Matthew 5, verse 34 and 35. He says, "But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king." The city has a purpose. Verse 2 then says that it is beautiful in elevation and the joy of the whole earth. Well, if we look at how Jerusalem is regarded nowadays and even throughout history, we cannot say that it has been the joy of the whole earth at any time in history. It's actually still a burdensome stone, and increasingly so today. So this is a prophetic saying. It speaks here of Jerusalem during the millennium, after the second coming of Jesus. And we can read about that in Zechariah 14 verse 10. It says, "And all the land shall be turned as a plain, from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. And it shall be referring to Jerusalem, and it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place, from Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate, unto the corner gate, and from the tower of Hanael unto the king's winepresses." And in verse 16, "And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles." Ultimately, also this millennial period, it foreshadows the new Jerusalem. So we continue the psalm, verse 4. "For lo, the kings were assembled, they passed by together. They saw it," referring again to the city, "and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind." Now, more than anyone else, Satan knows that Jerusalem is the city of God, and that Jesus does return there, and that he will reign over the earth from there. And that is why Satan moves everything and anything to come against Jerusalem. Zechariah 12 foretells us, and this was written 2,500 years ago, it foretells us that Jerusalem would become a burdensome stone for all people, for all nations. And that is being fulfilled right before our eyes. This is the first time in the history of man that all nations burden themselves with Jerusalem. But it tells also, that prophecy in Zechariah, how God will defend it. And as we read from Zechariah 14, no one will prevail against it. And here in the psalm we read a similar thing. The kings of the earth come to it, but they cannot attack it. Instead they marvel and they are troubled. Actually in Hebrew the words are very similar to those of Julius Caesar. These famous words that he said, "Veni vidi vici," I came, I saw, I conquered. But here it says Rahu, Tamahu, Nepasu. So again, three words, but the meaning is slightly different. It means they saw, they were astounded, and they fled. I wrote them actually down, the words. These are the three Hebrew words. They saw, they were astounded, and they fled. That is what the city will ultimately do to the kings of the earth, because it's the city of the great king. Without any weapon drawn, fear will take hold of them. An east wind will blow, and they will be fleeing in fear. Verse 8 then, as we have heard, so we have seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God, God will establish it forever. Selah. The psalmist repeats, the city of God, but then he says of our God. He will establish it forever. And if it says forever, obviously it doesn't speak about the earthly Jerusalem. It doesn't speak about the stones and the soil there, but it speaks about the new Jerusalem. God is fulfilling his promises. He has done so in the past, because the psalmist writes, as we have heard it from our ancestors. He has done it in the past. But he's also doing it in the present, as we have seen. We've seen it with our own eyes. He's still doing it. And so he will in the future. As with all experiences with the Lord, it is of course great to hear of them, but it is far greater to see it for yourself. And that is the point where all of us have to come, to be able to say, I have heard, yes, but I have seen. I have seen it for myself. I have not only heard, but I have also seen. So now the focus shifts slightly to the great King. In verse 9, we have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgments. So verse 8 ended with a selah, a pause, in order to think over the preceding, to consider it, to meditate. And then verse 9 begins with, we have thought. So it is good to stop and think things over. Usually we rush too much also when we read the scriptures. And so with these thoughts, the focus changed from God's strength and majesty to his loving kindness, his chesed. We've seen this word quite a few times now. His unfailing covenant-based love. And the psalmist sees it in the midst of God's temple. Being at the temple perhaps led to this thought. The temple is a testimony of itself. It is a place to meet with God. God said himself, I will meet the people there. It's a place even for the nations to meet God. It's a place to bring sacrifice, prefiguring God's substitute sacrifice. It's a place to give thanks and to bring praises. According to his name is his praise, it says, and his name reflects his character, which is expressed in loving kindness, but also in mercy, in righteousness, and in judgments. It says then, let the daughters of Judah be glad. And that may on the first level refer to the cities and the villages, but it certainly applies to the remnant of Israel in the last days. In Psalm 45 we also saw this term, the daughters of Jerusalem, the daughters of Zion, the daughters of Jacob. It all refers to the same thing, the remnant of Israel in the last days. And we've looked at some other scriptures that show the same thing. So here also showing again that this is a prophetic text. This is speaking about the end of the age. Verse 12 then. Walk about Zion and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that you may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God, forever and ever. He will be our guide, even unto death. So the psalmist now asks us to take a tour of Jerusalem, to take notice of its walls and towers, its palaces and temple. If we take careful notice of these, what do we see? And that question is answered in verse 14. For this is our God. It is ultimately not about the city, but about God. The city is great, yes, but it is so because God is great. All the marks of Jerusalem's glory and strength come from God. And it should be passed on to the next generation, because this city is forever and ever. It will be our guide even unto death, it says. The guide means like a road sign. The city will die, as it were, but it will resurrect as the New Jerusalem, and then last forever and ever. So too will we. We will leave this life in order to be resurrected into an everlasting life. In the New Jerusalem, the city of the great King, the city we hold before us, whose builder and maker is God. Hebrews 11 verse 16 says about those with faith, now they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. And of course we read about the fulfillment of this in Revelation 21. In verse 2 it says, and I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And then in the next chapter, Revelation 22, in verse 14, it says, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And in verse 21, and the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was of one pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. That is the city we hold before us. Speaking about the city of the great King is speaking about his victory over evil, the restoration of this earth, the millennial reign, which is a sabbatical day, prophetic day of 1,000 years, a period of peace, and after that the New Jerusalem and eternity. That is what we hold before us, the city of the great King, whose builder and maker is God. Amen.